All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. Today is Wednesday, June 18th of 2025. Looking ahead here, we have an 11-game MLB main slate today. We had 13 tennis matches get underway earlier today. Good luck to all of you playing some tennis. And there is a single WNBA showdown tonight as well. So it should be a fun day of DFS. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew, one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS related questions. Get your questions in one of three ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. Third way, post it in the office hours channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and want to get access to that channel, there is a link in the description of this video. You also get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and you get access to the rest of the SaberSim teams. Can't say enough good things about the Discord. But with that said, we do this show Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and then we do this show on Saturdays at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. So tune in any one of those days. Get your questions answered. All right. With that said, let's get SaberSim up on the screen here. We actually didn't have any questions prior to the show. Takedown said, "What's up, Andrew? What's going on?" And so I figured we'd just roll right into a slate demo here. So MLB main slate today, nice big slate. Going to start off with an ultimate demo today. So we will start there. Takedown said, "New to SaberSim. Welcome. Happy you found the show." And, we're going to get to building some lineups right now. So big slate, right? Ultimate demo. So we're going to do 5,000 lineups for these 10 plus game slates. Min salary is already at 49,000. I think that's probably fine. I like to turn on the don't use batters against opposing pitchers rule here. I think this is a good default rule to have on. And then we're just going to make two super small adjustments to projections. Aside from that, I'm going to trust Saber and the builder and the models and all that, and not going to do too much else up front. So going to click build here. While this builds, good opportunity, right, to go to the contest tab and upload an entry file. So always good to tell SaberSim which contest you are playing. Had talked about this a little bit in support, actually, responding to some customers. The reason that this is so good, right, is because you get to tell SaberSim, hey, I am playing exactly these contests. I'm playing exactly this many entries, right? Maybe it's a 20 max, but maybe you're playing 6 entries, right? You might actually get different lineups playing 6 entries than you would if you were playing 20 entries, right? Because there are just going to be differences in how the lineups have to fight for equity between each other in the contest sim. So that can lead to you getting different lineups when playing 6 instead of playing 20, right? So telling SaberSim what you're playing, super important. That way you can enable the sims for the contest that you're playing and then run them accordingly. But we're just going to use the default contest sim for this demo here. Just wanted to call that out. I think that's like an important note to make. Using the entry editor, very, very good thing to do. All right. So build finishes. I have on the run contest sim automatically after build toggle. So contest sim kicks off. Great. Let's act like we are going to build 150 lineups here. So I'll change the lineups to 150. Sort by exposure. When the sim finishes, maybe I interrupted the process, but generally contest sim ROI should change automatically. So anyways, you just want to make sure we're sorting by the ROI for the contest sim that we ran. I like to have my average projection aggregate metric. I like to have my average ROI aggregate metric. And right now, right, just setting things up, getting them the way I like it so we can start analyzing this build and see where we go from there. So 150 lineups, sorting correctly, good data points to have with the aggregate metrics, right? Looking at giving me the average projection across my 150, average ROI across my 150, sorting by exposures, and just kind of seeing what's out there, right? So look at our correlation, a lot of big stacks, 5 2s, 5 3s, 4 4s, 4 3s. So that's good. Getting a lot of Baltimore, right? A lot of Baltimore and the Mets in particular. And then pretty flat, like after that. So like kind of hammering Baltimore and the Mets, and then it kind of tails off. Players. And right now, right, we're just kind of getting a feel for like where SaberSim is like taking stands on the slate. Getting to, this is always interesting, right? Because like, oh, okay, my highest exposed pitcher is like Chris Sale. It's like, yeah, but his ownership's, like 29%. Really, our biggest quote unquote stand on the slate is Lodolo, right? Because his leverage is higher. So when the leverage is really what you want to be looking at, right? Because this tells you whether you are above the field, whether you're below the field, and what stands you're taking. So kind of similar stands like Lodolo, Sale, a little bit of positive leverage on like Framber. Seems fine. I don't mind this at all. We go over to batters. Top batter, 34% exposed. It looks like Gary Sanchez wasn't expected to be in the lineup, and then now he is. So ownership should rerun soon, and then that'll just give him some ownership here. But it looks like we weren't expecting him to play previously. But ownership will update, so just be patient on that. Aside from that, seeing a lot of big leverages, right? 20%, 30%. We talk about all the time about how hitters are high variance, right? So we do want to try and get some diversification here. So I'm going to start increasing the uniques, right? Big things are noting my data points here, 137% ROI, basically 94 projection, 93.99, we'll just round up. And then making sure I don't sacrifice too much ROI or projection as I start to try and get more spread out on the slate, especially on the batter side, right? All right, so we're going to start bumping up the uniques from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3. One thing to note, right? Sometimes you can see a situation where your projection actually increases rather than decreases, right? So like I'm always talking about like, yeah, we don't want our projection to like drop too many points and stuff like that. Sometimes you're going to see it where we're actually starting off from a point where we're fading more of the chalk, and getting the diversification is actually adding the chalk back in. Say that again. It's adding the chalk back in, which is causing the average projection to go up, right? In that case, you want to be a little bit more conscious of the ROI instead. So like right now we're down about 10% ROI. Projection has gone up about 0.7. And then we're going to go to 5 uniques. Okay, projections down about 20%. I'm sorry, projections up 1 point. ROI is down 20%. But notice these leverages, right? Starting to flatten out. We went from like 33% highest owned batter down to like 22% highest owned batter, right? We go over to the team stacks. We had like 46% Baltimore, 33% Mets. Now we're at 30% Baltimore, 24% Mets, right? So we're still taking stands on these teams, on these players, right? We go back to our exposures and we see, hey, Baltimore still highest exposed, followed by the Mets, right? Like our top 4, 8, 10, our top 10 batters are all from the Mets in Baltimore, right? Between this 22 to like 14% range. So still taking stands, but just not being as aggressive as we previously were. So I think that's like an important thing to be aware of here. You can continue to play with this if you want. I kind of like where it's at, right? We dropped about 20% ROI. Our batter exposures are a lot flatter. Our team stacks are a lot more in line with the other teams. We are still playing well-correlated lineups, 5-2s, 5-3s, etc. And then circling back on the pitchers. And we're still taking a stand on Sale. Little lower stand on Lodolo now. And all of my pitcher exposures, I'm pretty happy with. Another thing I like, I'm just noticing this, right, is that Bradley, we're a little bit negative leverage on him. And that's, kind of in line with us being positive leverage on Baltimore. One interesting thing I think here, kind of interesting, is that we're positive leverage on the Mets, but then we're also a little bit positive leverage on Chris Sale. I always try and like look for spots like that where it's just like a little bit weird. Generally, me personally, I would prefer to like pick a side, it's like, okay, I'm either on this side or I'm either on that side. I don't want to, try and like play both sides. Right. So what I would probably do here is I think I would use Chris Sale's pool exposure as like another data point to try and figure out what I should do with him, right? So like here I'm looking, I'm like, okay, we have like 42% Sale. He's about 29% owned. His pool exposure is like 31%, which we're basically assuming like his pool percent is like a more of like an optimal rate kind of thing, right? Exposure is looking at our 150. Pool is looking at all 5,000 lineups that we built. What I would probably do here is, I think me personally, I would choose the side of the Mets, and I would probably lower Sale to like his pool exposure. So I'm going to set a max exposure here to Sale of 33%. Which is just slightly higher than his ownership. The builder can sometimes be a little aggressive if you're like too direct. But I like this, right? And the reason I like it is because, okay, if Sale does good, then I have as many shares of him as the field does. But if he does bad, I am very leveraged against him as well. So basically, either 33% of my lineups are going to be dead with Sale, or 26% of my lineups are going to be dead with the Mets. You know, at the end of the day, only one of your lineups can win first, right? So I have a lot of lineups like riding on the outcome of this game. You know, about like 60% of my lineups are kind of focused around this, right? Based on stacks, based on him pitching. I think it's okay. But I do think it's good to like pick a side, and here, like I decided to pick the Mets side. You could be more aggressive with this and be like, okay, well, I want to be under on Sale. The fact that we were over on him made me a little bit more cautious and not want to do that. It made me just want to be a little bit even with him at pitcher and then over on the Mets. So that's probably the angle I would take if in this situation, right? It's always going to kind of depend. Maybe, you know, his pool exposure is way higher next time. Okay, well then maybe I, you know, get off the Mets and I stick more with the positive leverage at pitcher, right? It's always going to kind of depend case by case basis, but at least that's how I'm thinking about this. I do think it's good to look out for those spots, right? This is why it's good to double check everything. Okay, I'm going through here, checking my exposures, my leverages. Hey, do I see anything weird, you know? And that was definitely one thing I saw weird. And then I would specifically do it for like your highest owned teams, like take like your top 2 or 3 highest owned stacks and like double check, right? Like I checked for Taj Bradley and I was like, hey, you know, we're under on him. We have the negative leverage, makes sense with the Baltimore stacks, right? So those are my thoughts here with regard to just like risk management on this slate, different things like that. I think this 5 uniques is perfectly fine. I'd be happy stopping here and uploading these lineups pretty much. So it's a good ultimate demo for MLB for today. Question, in your opinion, when is the best time to run the sim? Good question. So for me, you know, in case you're not aware, I know you said you knew, these check marks next to the teams mean that the team has announced the starting lineup and we have run a final sim with that team's starting lineup. So like, for instance, the D-backs in Toronto here, right? Both of them have a check mark. That means that both teams have announced their lineups. We've run a final sim with the starting lineup. And effectively, now that both teams are out, you know, we can expect the projections not to change here unless there's like some type of late scratch or something like that. So once those lineups come out, once that final sim runs, those are the things you want to be aware of. You know, for me, I'm always looking for the check marks to be out for the games that start around lock time. So like I would want to wait for the Angels to be out. I would want to wait for the Mets to be out. You could probably wait for the Cardinals and the White Sox to come out as well. This one should be out like really soon. Generally, lineups are out like 2 to 3 hours before the game starts. But, you know, you don't have to wait like for these night games to be out. You know, the Cleveland Giants, the Astros, A's, the Padres, Dodgers, right? I'm not super concerned about these lineups. Like if I'm in a position where like, hey, you know, all of the lineups are out for like the first games that start within 30 minutes of the slate, once that's set up, you can run your build. Because guess what? Even if, Will Smith gets the night off, if, for whatever reason, Jose Altuve is not starting, right? Like a number of things can happen where the lineup doesn't come in as expected. You have plenty of time to late swap for all of those things, right? But you just want to make sure that the games that start around lock, especially these like 4 that all start within 10 minutes of each other, you have like a 20-minute break here between the Orioles and the Rays. So like a 20-minute break can give you time to change stuff if you need it, but at least wait for the starting lineups for the games around lock to come out and then run your final, your initial set of lineups from there. But if you're in a position where like, okay, hey, Altuve or somebody got out and I don't really know what to do, take advantage of our swap tools. Okay, so if you're in SaberSim, go top right, go to help, go to SaberSim tutorials, check out this how to late swap video. There's actually 2 swap methods. They're both covered in that video. One of them is the quick swap tool, which is this lightning bolt. It'll activate red if there is an out player in your lineups. And then the late swap will take you through re-optimizing your lineups while a slate is in progress. So those are like the 2 videos that you're going to want to watch. All right. Good stuff there. Good stuff there. Why don't we also go, I did have like a FanDuel request yesterday and it made me think like we should do a little bit more on FanDuel. So why don't we do a starter demo and we'll do it over on FanDuel. So 1, we're doing different subscriptions. 2, we're doing different sites, right? So we'll jump over to FanDuel here. Same slate. Looks like same games. Pretty sure it's 11 game or 2. And we're just waiting for this build to load up. Cool. So we're going to go 500 lineups. I'm still going to turn on the don't use batters against opposing pitcher rule. I do not need to change any projections on FanDuel because their community guidelines are different. So I'm going to kick this build off, kick off 500 lineups. All right. And just waiting for this to run. In case anybody missed it, Florida Panthers won the Stanley Cup final yesterday. So hockey season is officially over until I think like October. So a couple months off. All right. This build is finally finishing up here. So 20 lineups. We're in the post build. I'm going to cancel this contest sim. We don't need it, right? We're going to stick with Saber Score on this one. A lot of the same principles here as far as like my exposures and my leverages. Only the projection aggregate metrics since we don't have ROI. For Saber Score, I would make sure to set it to the right one. So whatever contest you're primarily optimizing for, if you don't know which one you want to optimize for, I would always pick the biggest entrance because basically, for smaller contests, generally, you can say that, oh, I'll need a lower score to win, which could be true. So if you just optimize for your biggest contest, right? Maybe your biggest contest is like the 25 cent 150 max. Maybe it's like over 50K entries. Well, if you optimize for that one, then any of those lineups can win some of the smaller contests. They have enough upside to do it. So that's just one way to think about it, right? In some cases, it might be too much upside, but it is a better option than the reverse of optimizing for a contest where you need less upside and then trying to apply that to larger contests, right? So anyways, we're going to use the 50K Saber Score. We're going to look for 20 lineups. Let's say we're playing like a 20 max or like the $2.22. I think it's like 20, 25, depends. So we're going to do 20 lineups here. sort by exposure. Now, a couple things with Saber Score, right? You do want to be more mindful of how far down in your pool you're going. I always recommend trying to stay in the top 25 to 50% of your pool. So that's the top 125 to 250 lineups. When we apply an ROI greater than 0 filter on Ultimate, generally filtering out like 30 to 50% of your lineups. So if you're staying in the top 25 to 50%, you are much more likely to continue to play positive EV lineups. So that's the big thing there. Now that I have my 20 lineups, I'm scrolled to the bottom. Again, I'm going to come in here and do kind of some of the similar principles, right? Okay, am I stacking? Yes, 4 stack in 19 out of 20 lineups. Team stacks, a lot of Houston, interesting, a lot of Cincinnati this time, right? So we're kind of getting off the Mets here, playing a little bit more Houston, Cincinnati. I go over to my players, and I go over to pitchers. Okay, we're getting a lot of Framber. We're getting some Sale, not that much, and we're kind of flat here, right? So not a lot of big stands, except for Valdez. Go over to batters, more Cincinnati, more Houston, a little Tampa Bay, a lot of high leverages. So again, I'm going to do the same thing, right? Noting average projection. This time it might drop because we have so much Houston at the top. You just kind of got to see. So we start at 118.4. Okay, projection goes down to 117.7. We're at lineup 24 now. So we've had to skip a couple lineups to meet our min unique requirement. And remember, the min uniques are basically saying, I want every lineup in my 20 to have this many players different from each other. So I'm saying, hey, I want 3 players different in every lineup out of the 20. So then the builder has to basically filter and go further down in the pool to find lineups that meet that request, right? Okay. So in order to get 20 lineups with 4 players different, I've had to go down to lineup 26. That's fine. You know, it's like top 5% of our pool. So we're still way up there. All right. So at 5 uniques here, we're down to lineup 30, which is great. Notice every batter or no batter in more than 25% of our lineups. And notice we don't have a single batter over a 20% leverage, right? So our leverage has come down significantly here. We're spreading out our batters. We're still taking a stand on Framber, a little bit smaller, but still a stand. We go over to team stacks, still taking a stand on Houston. But this is what I really like. We have 45% Houston, but we have no Houston batter in more than 25% of our lineups. So that tells me that we're using a lot of different pieces in this lineup. And we can check this, right? We can filter. I like to right click on team, go down to Houston, and then I'll come in and I'll sort by order. And I'll just look at this across the board and like, hey, how much Houston exposure are we getting across all batter spots, right? And it's anywhere from like 1 to 5, but multiple players, 3, multiple players, 4, multiple players, 5. The only person we're kind of under on is Caratini here. He does have the lowest ownership on the team. You know, you got to take stands somewhere. I'm kind of okay with this. I'll be like, okay, well, hopefully, you know, Houston does good and hopefully Caratini doesn't, right? Because since I only have 1 lineup with him, it is like about his ownership, but obviously I have, you know, more shares of the other players in the lineup. Can't get to everybody unless you're playing like a ridiculous number of lineups. But this feels fine. This feels fine to me. I would be a little concerned if I had like, you know, some pieces like 40, 50% and other pieces none, or other pieces like 5%, you know, where things kind of get out of whack. But I think the uniques are spreading this out in like a pretty nice way. So I'm happy with how that distribution of exposure looks. All right, but what have we done here, right? We started this build with 1 unique, and we watched our average projection. We watched our exposures and our leverages. We verified our exposures to our highest owned teams. We checked our pitchers. We checked our stack, you know, and our correlations. And, you know, we mostly let the builder do the hard work, but we're doing all of like the quality assurance, right? We're doing all the QA work here. We're making sure that, you know, we sign off on these final lineups before we take them and submit them into our contest. So at this point, I'm pretty happy with these lineups. We're still playing a lot of very high lineups here, 20 out of the top 30, and I think these are good. So I'd be ready to save these and upload them to my contests. All right. Taking a peek in office hours here. Looks like we're still caught up there. Caught up in chats here. Knocked out an ultimate MLB demo on DK. Knocked out a starter MLB demo on FanDuel. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I think we're going to get out of here. I'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern for our next show. So until then, everybody, take care. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.